And that's right, folks. Y'all locked into another episode of 99 Pod. It's not 1999 anymore podcast. And believe it's not. Things are happening. The world is changing. The sports world is changing. But we are here and ready to deliver a show for the people today. And before we do just that, make sure y'all like and subscribe to the channel. Okay, so y'all can get notifications of good content, sports debates, good takes coming your way. All right, we are on YouTube, iHeartMedia, social media. Okay, Apple, Spotify. Okay, it's going down in about 5, right? I just wanted to rhyme there, but it's 4:18. Okay, we about to witness the playoffs in the MLB. It's going down. The Mets is playing today. Salute to them for an improbable comeback that they had a couple days ago. I mean, a lot of things happening in New York. All right, it went down in the NBA. We're gonna talk about that for sure. Okay, in today's show, Cat meow. Okay, is coming to the New York Knicks. But Cat, let me be clear here. Okay, all right, no meow. Okay, we don't want no sore players in New York now. You better bring that dog. Okay, make sure it happens. We're gonna talk about that for sure. All right, my New York Knickerbockers. We're gonna talk about it. Okay, and man, I didn't even mention the NFL. So much things happening. Okay, week 4 is in the books. We are going to recap some of these games for sure. And we're going to have our guy Zay coming on and joining us in a few minutes. He's having technical issues, but my guy Zach is back. Zach, how you feeling?
Will, what's going on, man? Happy to be here with you as always. Super unfortunate. I had to miss last week's show. Had a little bit of a car issue, but I'm happy to be back here today with you. And you brought up just everything that's been going on in the sporting world. And one debate I always have with my friends and even myself, I think it's a great question, and I'm curious for your thought, is, in your opinion, what is the best time period of the year to be a sports fan? Because I think currently in early October, we are right there. And this is a great option because you have the MLB playoffs starting up. The NFL season is a month in. We have college football in full swing. The NBA is starting up very soon. So it's a great time to be a sports fan. The other options for me would be like March. You have the NCAA tournament, which is personally my favorite sporting event. You have NFL free agency. You have the start of the baseball season. So I think that's a great candidate. And then also early September, just because the NFL is starting and there's nothing better than having football season back. But I think I'll go with October. Like when you have the MLB playoffs, when you have both football seasons in full swing, the NBA about to start off, it doesn't really get much better than that. So I'm curious, in your opinion, Will, what do you think is the best time of year to be a sports fan and why?
All year round, it's going down. But to be exact, Zach, I'm going to go October and November, man, for all the reasons you just disclosed. You know, the NBA playoffs, the NBA season is going to start soon. The MLB playoffs is in full boom. The NFL, we hitting the meat of the schedule. It all goes down in October, November. So I'm definitely, you got Thanksgiving in November. Obviously, you eat food, you watch sports. I mean, it doesn't get any better than that.
Can't say I disagree, man. Can't say I disagree.
All right, man. We might as well begin in the NFL right now because it went down last night. We had a doubleheader Monday Night Football. And what we want to do right now to begin this show is, wow, Kenny, since when you've been a Saints fan? I'm seeing my guy Kenny, who I knew from the Sandbox, repping the Who Dat Nation a lot. And I never knew this brother for as long as I knew this brother was a Saints fan. Kenny, you need to explain to me what we're doing here with that. But anyway, Zach, we got our guy Zay just in time. Just in time, Zay's in the building. Zay, what's the vibes looking like, my guy?
Hey man, listen, it's a gloomy day in New York, right? And we'll figure out what it is as we go through the motions of this episode. I'm glad I was able to make it. Shout out to Zach, shout out to Lil. Hope you're having great days. This weekend was a tumultuous one to say the least, but I can't wait to talk about it with you guys in terms of football, in terms of basketball, in terms of baseball, but most importantly, and everyone watching, please like and subscribe to the channel. We are working hard here. Enjoy the content, enjoy the show. I'm ready to rock and roll.
And away we go. We are going to give our biggest takeaway from the Monday Night Football doubleheader. And Zach, the mic is yours.
Yeah, well, it's funny with that doubleheader last night. I know technically they were 2 games, but I feel like most people's, real eyes, their real attention was on that second game between the Seahawks and the Lions. And of course, I'm sure you guys are going to have plenty of thoughts on that. So I'm going to trigger a little bit. I did somehow, some way, I don't know what I was doing with my time. I did watch a lot of that Titans Dolphins game. I had both TVs set up, and I had some thoughts on that game right off the bat that I wanted to get into. And I'll start off by saying this, I've made it pretty clear over the course of the last 3 weeks that I thought it was pretty foolish that Tyreek Hill was ranked number 1 on the NFL top 100 players list that goes on every year. And I've thought that because the Chiefs literally traded him and then they won back-to-back Super Bowls. Like, to be honest, I don't even think he's the best wide receiver in the league, let alone the best player in the league. I would take Justin Jefferson over him. I would take CD Lamb over him any day of the week. And also last year, I felt like Tyreek Hill had some just very costly plays in some crucial spots and crucial games for Miami. A couple that come to mind, he had that fumble in Germany against the Chiefs that really swung that game. He had a crucial drop early in the game against the Ravens late in the season. And then he was a no-show in week 18 against Buffalo when the division was on the line. That was a home primetime game. And then in the playoffs against the Chiefs, he did nothing. So really last season, when Miami was collapsing, Tyreek Hill was nowhere to be found. And I was very disappointed within his efforts. But then in the offseason, he says, I want a massive extension. I want a new contract. He tells the Dolphins, pay me. So they did. But he wasn't the only person the Miami Dolphins paid this offseason. They paid Jalen Waddle, his running mate at the wide receiver position. They even extended their head coach in Mike McDaniel. And, of course, we all know the big one. They decided to pay their quarterback, Tua Tagovailoa. And I didn't love the Tua Tagovailoa contract because I don't really view him as a guy that could elevate your team or someone that could really take your team to the next level, that ceiling you're trying to reach. But when we've watched the Miami Dolphins over the course of the last few games, there's no doubt that without Tua, this team just falls off a cliff and they have no offense. And I find it interesting that really the perception of the Kyle Shanahan offense that Mike McDaniel runs is it's very quarterback friendly. You're supposed to be able to plug and play any quarterback really, and there shouldn't be that much of a drop off. But for some reason, that doesn't apply to this Miami Dolphins team. It could be Teddy Bridgewater. It could be Skylar Thompson. It could be Tim Boyle. It could be Tyler Huntley, who we saw last night. It doesn't matter. The bottom line is, if Tua Tagovailoa is not on the field, this Dolphins offense can't score. And that's a huge problem. And my real issue with this Dolphins team right now, as we're watching a key play from last night, key turnover, Mike McDaniel, I just said it, he signed a contract extension in the offseason. He is now one of the highest paid coaches in the league. You have Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle at the wide receiver position, and both of them are making a ton of money. But when Tua Tagovailoa is not on the field, none of these guys could step up. No one can make a play when they need them to most. And really, when I've watched the Dolphins, I'm sure everyone has watched them. They've been in prime time 2 of the last 3 weeks. I just don't think their offense should be this bad. And when I watch them, they kind of strike me as a team that, okay, all of their big names got paid and they stopped caring. I saw a team that was just very checked out last night, that had no interest in being there. They had no interest in playing football. And I like the Tennessee Titans defense. I'm a big fan of their defensive coordinator, Jannard Wilson. I think he is a guy that has a very bright future as a coach in this league. Also, I didn't think it helped Miami that Will Levis got hurt early in the game and he never came back in. They ended up pivoting to Mason Rudolph. And to be honest, I just think he's the better quarterback than Will Levis, and Brian Callahan should roll with him going forward, even though he said after the game that Levis is still his guy. But I just thought the Miami Dolphins were super disappointing last night. They've been one of the most disappointing teams in the league so far. And I understand that Tua Tagovailoa is out, but you still have Tyreek Hill. You still have Jalen Waddle. You still have Mike McDaniel. You still have Devon Achane. Like, look at this play. He just drops the ball and he doesn't even think that, that's a backward pass. That could still be a live ball. And the Titans defender.
I mean, he's not even diving for that ball. I mean, this guy's playing games literally and not the game that he's supposed to be playing.
Yeah. He just didn't care. He struck me as a guy that was checked out last night. You see him complaining on the sidelines. And look, I don't even understand what the point of having Tyreek Hill on your team is when he's going to be this checked out, when you don't have a quarterback to get him the ball. And my main takeaway from the doubleheader last night is that anytime this Miami Dolphins team sees any type of adversity, they fold. And that's a bad thing when you have guys like Tyreek and Waddle and Mike McDaniel who are just locked up long term. And, it's clear that they're better significantly when Tua Tagovailoa is out there. But we know that when Tua is your quarterback, I just don't really think your ceiling is that high. So that was a pathetic performance by the Miami Dolphins last night. They looked disinterested. They looked checked out. And yeah, that is my main takeaway. Anytime they see adversity, they fold.
Yeah, I would like to respond to that. And then I'll let Zay respond to that. And then Zay, you could pick up with your biggest takeaway after, and then I'll go ahead. But just responding to that. That's why the quarterback position is very important in the NFL. And I understand why a lot of people, they be like, why are we always talking about quarterbacks? Why are quarterbacks getting chunk of the pie when it comes to the salary cap, right? But that's because when you don't have a quarterback that can function in an offense, you got people that are disinterested. You lose the locker room. The team is not playing hard enough. Look at Devontae Adams. He don't got himself a quarterback. And now news just broke before we got on the air that he prefers to be traded. Okay, you lose yourself mentally. Look at Tyreek Hill in that video. I mean, my guy's not even making an effort to pick up the daggone ball and run. Okay, this is what happens. That's why it's important to have a quarterback. That's why we always talk about quarterbacks. That's why quarterbacks are the Will Smiths, the Denzel Washingtons, the Michael B. Jordans of movies, because they are important to the team's success. Now, looking at this Dolphins team right now, I think for me, Tua may not be valuable anywhere else, but he is damn sure valuable on the Miami Dolphins. Okay, say what you want. A lot of people like to disrespect that man, and granted, he doesn't always play great. He has boneheaded mistakes that he makes. Okay, I get it. Sometimes he put his guys in harm's way, right? But we cannot say that this guy is not valuable to this Mike McDaniel offense, because clearly he is, okay? And we have to accept that. That's why he's being paid $53 million per year, okay? Now, the thing that I don't want the Dolphins to make the mistake is trying to put all their eggs in one basket here. We don't know Tua's future, okay? We don't know that. Yes, they put him on IR. He may be back sooner rather than later, but we don't want to bank on that, especially going forward when we know this guy brain is fried. With all due respect, okay? What they should do is learn from the Jets mistake, who ironically is in the same division, and what happened to them last year. Oh, we just gotta, be functionable. We got a good defense. All we need to do is be in the playoff hunt, and we are going to get Aaron Rodgers back off an Achilles injury healthy. Oh, yeah? No, it's not happening, Knock. You will be eliminated by Black Friday. Okay? So at the end of the day, the Dolphins need to learn from that mistake. Don't say, oh, okay, we're going to get Tua back. We don't know that. Look what happened to Brett Favre. He came out and he got Parkinson's disease. This ain't a game, even though it is a game. Okay? This guy brain could be cooked. I don't even want to see Tua ever again playing as a football quarterback anymore. Not because I don't like Tua, but because of his serious injury. So what the Dolphins need to do is trade for a quarterback in order to save this season and not punt this season away.
Yeah, I think the season's over for the Dolphins because of, like you just said, Tua's injury. I'm an advocate. I'm an avid Tua hater. I think he's an overrated quarterback, but like you just stated, he is very valuable to this Miami Dolphins team. I think they need a functional quarterback on this roster that could facilitate the throws, get the throws to the receivers, and so on and so forth. And I just think they haven't yet found a quarterback it's capable of making that particular throws and particular moves. And I think this is a microcosm what the Dolphins team is, because we said it, well, at least I said it before the season started. They had no defense. Their defense was going to be hurt. They was already battered and bruised. It was going to be taken advantage of throughout the season. And I said that in the preseason. And what we're seeing now is a Titans team that looked horrendous all year to take advantage of the Dolphins, right? You got Tyreek Hill yelling and screaming, but no one's talking about him being a diva. No one's talking about him being a bad teammate like they do Stephon Diggs. Right? They just say, oh, well, Tua's out and things of that nature. And this is the issue, right? And then the mastermind himself, McDaniels, everyone's questioning his coaching ability, in which those questions need to be asked, because he can't play against teams over 500 for whatever reason. His teams are doing horrible against teams over 500. So there's a lot of different questions that the Miami Dolphins team has to ask, especially after this horrendous game. Is Mike McDaniels the coach? Because what is going on here is he just only for Tua? Is he the only person that can unlock Tua and that's it? Because this offense doesn't flow without him, right? This team wasn't nothing without McDaniels apparently. So what is the hell is the answer to this team and what the issues that they're facing? So I think for me, that Dolphins, especially about to play Tim Boyle, it was so much wrong happening there in Miami, and I just hope they find an answer sooner than later because we could see a lot of people getting fired because stuff like this.
I mean, this guy missed Tyreek Hill. I mean, I understand that Tyreek Hill, we expect him to still make plays. Not barring, but because he got the large contract, because he was voted the number one wide receiver or player in general in the NFL. And I get that. But there was a play, literally, I didn't watch 99% of this game. I just wasn't going to do it. I value my time as a human being with age. Okay. I was not. So the 1% that I tune into this game, the first thing I see was Snoop Huntley overthrowing Tyreek Hill, who had a step on his man, multiple steps on his man. I don't know why they was playing man coverage, but I guess they realized the team was checked out. So he's like, heck with it. We just going to play man on man on Tyreek Hill. And he blow past his defender, and Snoop Huntley overthrows this guy. And then I heard on the telecast, he underthrew him early in the game. After I saw that, I immediately tuned back out. That was it. My night was over as far as that game. I tuned back into the Seahawks and the Lions game, which I'm going to talk about soon. But yeah, that's my point.
Well, I just wanted to say, I think you brought up a good comparison with the Jets from last year and this Dolphins team, because I think it's similar in the sense that, okay, the Miami Dolphins paid Tua Tagovailoa this offseason. I don't necessarily love the move, but I could at least understand why they did it, because you see this team without Tua even last year and the year prior to that, and it's a huge drop-off. But I just don't love the fact that they went into the season with Skylar Thompson as their backup quarterback, a guy that we saw play in the playoffs 2 years ago, and it was clear the Dolphins with a better quarterback easily could have won that playoff game against the Buffalo Bills. And I guess McDaniel's reasoning was, okay, he is a guy that we drafted. He's been in the system for a few years now. He knows the offense, but he hasn't looked good in his action on the field. Snoop Huntley, I know he just got to Miami, but he's not really an NFL starting caliber quarterback. And these key decisions could just really cost you. And I just don't understand, given Tua's history with concussions, like, how do you go into this season with those guys being your backup quarterbacks? And their offensive line has really regressed. I know they lost a couple key pieces from that unit from last year. Connor Williams, really the primary guy at center, but I think their GM, Chris Greer, deserves a lot of heat as well. And I just think with McDaniel, like, okay, he deserves credit. He really got Tua to play much better compared to Brian Flores and what he did with him. And then the Dolphins, they've made the playoffs each of the last 2 years, the first time they've done that in over 20 years. But I feel like they're at a point where they have to start winning playoff games now. They have to start beating good teams, and they're going in the opposite direction. And when you have an 0-3 Tennessee Titans team coming into your building in prime time, that's just a game you have to win, especially after what happened against the Buffalo Bills on Thursday Night Football 2 weeks ago, when your division rival, they just embarrassed you for the second time in 2 years in prime time in your building. So this Dolphins team is 1-3. I don't think there's a lot of hope, and I just need more from Mike McDaniel, Tyreek Hill, and Jalen Waddle. Like, we don't talk about Waddle. He had a crucial drop last night when Miami, they had some hope to get back in the game. Waddle just had a crucial drop. He hasn't made any big plays and big moments in the last year or two that I remember. And they decided to pay him and let a guy like Christian Wilkins go on the defensive line, who's a heck of a player. So I just need more from those three guys. And when I watch this team, they're just very uninspiring.
I agree. Zach, I would like to go. Zay, if you want to go with your biggest takeaway from either game, by all means, and then I go.
My biggest takeaway is not in this game, right? It was mainly for the juggernaut game I thought I would be seeing, which it wound up being, is Seattle versus Detroit, right? And my biggest takeaway is Seattle's run defense is still terrible. I just couldn't fathom how I thought Mike McDonald.
Yep.
Mike McDonald.
McDonald's had a phone.
He came from the Baltimore Ravens, had a fantastic year as a defensive coordinator. He did wonders for that team, wound up being one of the best run defenses in the NFL. He goes to Seattle, and that run defense still isn't fixed. Seattle's run defense has been a problem for the last couple years. not just last season, for the last couple years, their run defense has been horrendous, has been lackluster. It hasn't been any sort of effort towards that whatsoever. And I thought the schemes will be fixed for this game, especially a team that has a powerhouse running back in Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs. And they couldn't stop anybody. They couldn't stop either one of them. And it was kind of baffling, the fact that Seattle, despite all the additions, not only on the coaching staff, on their defense, they haven't been able to fix that run defense. And it's just so weird to me. That pass defense was even worse. I feel like the Lions were able to do whatever they wanted. And they had a perfect passing rating between Jared Goff, and Amon St. Brown. So it just kind of
like him. He played like him last night, but go ahead.
It's just wild, the fact that this damn Seattle defense is in a loop. It's like it's some reason they have a disconnect on what they need to do on defense, and that's just very weird and strange when Seattle, for at least most of my lifetime, has been a franchise who pride themselves on defense. And it's kind of weird to see the Seattle defense just being this kind of Olay, like, here, take whatever you want because we're going to score on the other end kind of style of game. So it's just, for me, that was like my biggest takeaway. Where the hell is Seattle's defense?
I mean, I'd like to respond to that. And then, Zach, I'll let you, and then I'll go with my takeaway. Look, if they gave the ball to Kenneth Walker III, I'm talking about Seattle here, in the first half, then this game probably would have looked different. Because clearly the Lions defense, run defense, didn't have an answer for KW3. Okay? So now, if you give KW3, Kenneth Walker III, the ball in the first half, now you're playing ball control, and the Lions offense cannot get into as much sync as they did in that game. So I thought that it stems from the same team, but the offense not being able or not committing to running the ball more in the first half, which allowed your defense to be in those vulnerable spots. So that's why you run the football, because you keep the opposing quarterback on the bench. You keep your defense on the bench as well, because they're not on the field because you're on the field, and that's how you play. And they waited to the second half to give Kenneth Walker the ball, and it was too late. But yeah, Zach, the mic is yours.
Yeah, so my thought on this game going into it was I was just curious to see how Seattle was going to adjust, because you have to give them credit for starting 3-0, especially when you have a first-year head coach in Mike Macdonald. But when you look at their schedule, their 3 wins were against the Broncos, rookie quarterback, the Patriots, arguably the worst team in the league right now. They won that game in overtime. It wasn't an easy win, too. And then in week 3, they beat the Dolphins and Skylar Thompson. Or in week 3, they beat the Dolphins and Skylar Thompson, who we just finished talking about. And I was curious to see how exactly Seattle was going to adjust, going from 3 of the worst teams in the league to start their season. And give them credit, they won all 3 games. You can't control who's on your schedule. But then you're going into, in my opinion, the best home field advantage in the NFL right now, in Detroit, in prime time, against the Lions offense that they've had some hiccups early on in the season, but they're still one of the best offenses in the league. And I was curious to see how they would adjust to that. And look, I'm a huge Mike Macdonald fan. I think he's probably the best young defensive mind in the game. But the bottom line is, this Seahawks team, I always felt like there was going to be an adjustment without Pete Carroll. And when you have a first-year head coach and you have a first-year offensive play caller, like those two things especially. And look, the Lions offense really got the better end of the Seattle defense last night, but I don't think that should be a huge shock considering it was in the Dome. We know how deadly the Lions are in that building. Jared Goff has never lost a home primetime game as a member of the Lions, and he played a perfect game. Now, the Seahawks defense, I think they're going to be fine just because of Mike Macdonald, but I still never thought, even throughout the first 3 weeks of the season, that this was some elite defense that was one of the best defenses in the league and that is anywhere close to, on par to some of the same Seattle Seahawks defenses we've seen in the past. And I just feel like a lot of people they didn't realize the impact of losing Pete Carroll and what exactly that was going to do for this team. He was one of the best coaches in the league. He kind of was gone pretty suddenly. I don't think a lot of people were really expecting that to happen. And I think you saw the first glimpse of that last night. I think Mike Macdonald was a good hire. I think he's going to be fine long-term, but in the first year, it was always going to be a little bit of an adjustment. And I think last night was really the first sign we saw that, okay, maybe Seattle misses their Hall of Fame head coach a little bit. And it's going to take Mike Macdonald some time to really get this thing really going.
Yeah, I think it's going to take some time. Obviously. But the fact that they are 3-1 at this very point in time, it's fair. And they put up a fight, even though, the Lions just was too much. And I want to transfer over there because that's where my biggest takeaway is going to come from. My biggest takeaway is that Ben Johnson and the Lions have the best offense in the entire NFL. They do. And I was going back and forth all summer long. Lions, Packers, who do I think is going to come out of the NFC and represent in the Super Bowl, right? And I initially went with the Packers, and Jordan Love got hurt. I thought it was going to be serious, so I kind of like changed it to the Lions, and now I'm going back and forth. But I don't need to anymore. I like both teams. I'm not going to overreact to the Packers loss either, but I do think the Lions are on a mission, and I think the fact that they bought Ben Johnson back and kept him away from a head coaching job because he didn't want to take it, is why they're going to be able to complete the mission that they are setting out to do. This just look like a team that's on a mission. Like Boston last year for me in the NBA, I knew they was on a mission. I could sense it. I could feel it. And that's what I feel about this Lions team. And you just look at the creative juice, the creativity. It was a schematic masterclass that I saw last night. I want to pull up a play in particular, but hopefully I'll pull up the right clip here. I believe this is the one. I mean, look at this. Look at this creativity. The Seahawks wasn't expecting that. This is Ben Johnson in his bag. Okay. Now, a lot of people is talking about Cliff Kingsbury, as we should. What he's doing with Jaden Daniels is phenomenal, right? We talk about Joe Brady the last couple of weeks prior to Sunday night, when I thought he blew the momentum by that trick play he did. But before that, he was putting on a nice class of offensive, creativity as well, with Josh Allen being able to minimize Diggs not being there, or maximize rather. And now, to me, it felt like Ben Johnson was like, hold my beer. Let me show you who's number one. And that's what I got last night. This offense looks scary. Jared Goff was 18 for 18, bro. Okay. Now, there was a dig concept route in which I believe it was Jameson Williams. He ran on the vertical route from the inside, and Amara ran a dig route from the outside, and that allowed Jared Goff to get the ball to Amon-Ra St. Brown on 2nd and 6 for 17 yards. It's creativity like that. And I look at this offense, the run-pass balance that this offense has. It's like this team could win games in a magnitude of ways. Like week 1 against the Rams, they just ran David Montgomery up the gut. And in overtime, just give it to him. I'm going to give it to you. Pop, pop, pop. All right, we just going to run the rock. Okay? In this game, we're going to mix it up. We're going to do some, Amara to Jared Goff. We're going to pass the rock a lot. We're going to run the ball a little bit as well. They can win games in a lot of ways. And that's why my biggest takeaway is that the Lions have the best offense in the NFL.
So one thing that really stuck out to me watching this game last night was and I've said this on the show a few times, like Brad Holmes, this guy does not get enough credit for being one of the best GMs in the league, because the roster he built is just absolutely loaded. And I loved his approach of, okay, Jared Goff is very good, but we don't have, Tom Brady or Patrick Mahomes on our team. A lot of times you need a guy like that at quarterback if you want to win a Super Bowl. So what do? Okay, we're just going to build up the best offensive line in the league and have 2 very good running backs, and that's going to be our identity. And Lil, I think you made a good point. Like this offense, they could win games in so many different ways. They have St. Brown and Williams, a great wide receiver punch 1-2. Their tight end Laporta hasn't really got going yet. And Jared Goff, he's always just been a guy where as long as you just give him some protection and there's no pressure and he's playing in good weather, you play in a dome, he's going to get the job done for you. And I think he's one of the most underrated quarterbacks in the league for that reason. I'm happy they paid him. I'm happy they decided to lock him up. And that Lions offense we saw last night, it's also a good sign too. Like we haven't really seen that yet this season. That was the best by far and away their offenses looked the entire season. I thought they had a nice bounce back win in week 3 in Arizona against the Cardinals team that was fresh off their big statement win against the Rams. And the Lions too, they lost their second game to the Buccaneers, where they really dominated them, but they just couldn't finish in the red zone. And they were able to do that last night, which is a great sign against one of the best defensive minds in the league in Mike McDonald. So I just don't think Brad Holmes gets enough credit for deciding to trade Matthew Stafford for Jared Goff. That's a decision that doesn't get nearly enough credit. He drafted Jahmyr Gibbs in the first round, top 10, which was a very controversial pick, but that's worked out. He looked great last night. He found St. Brown. They drafted Jameson Williams in the top 10. The offensive line is great. So I just think Brad Holmes, he deserves more credit than he gets as one of the best GMs in the league.
Well, Gibbs is still a controversial take. It's the verdict's not out on him yet because no one banked on Montgomery being as great as he is right now. We all said he was talented, but we all thought injuries and his health was a big question mark, especially when he was in Chicago. So when he went to Detroit and he's doing what he's doing currently, nobody anticipated him having basically a second wind of career in Detroit. Like no one expected him to be a top 5, top 6 running back in the league based upon what Dan Campbell is doing. He is running him to the ground and he is willingly doing it with no effort. He is playing his ass off right now. And people thought when you drafted Gibbs, you're drafting your future running back. Your running back one who's going to take a bulk of the carries. But the way Montgomery's playing, you can't take the ball out of his hands. It's just like, well, you just have to wait until Montgomery falls off, and then we'll give you the ball.
Yeah, I mean, I think Jahmyr Gibbs took a back seat. Even before, I mean, I never really looked at Gibbs as being the number one since, last year. I mean, it was always the David Montgomery show. But then, at various times when David Montgomery got injured, especially last year, that we saw Gibbs being involved in the offense more. I do think he got to ride the hot hand, but it's never bad in today's modern NFL to have 2 running backs that are capable of being number ones, especially in today's climate. When you talk about the injuries, the decline overnight that happens with the running back position. But we are seeing guys like Saquon Barkley still have a lot left. Derrick Henry still have a lot left in his old age. So that could be debatable. Maybe they just special talents, but I think it's a good luxury to having both guys that you can, just give the rock to and let them make a play. I like how they complement each other well as well.
And that's their identity. How many teams in the NFL do we watch and you just ask, like, what is this team's identity? Mm-hmm. It's clear that the Lions have one, and that's a great thing.
The one more point that I want to bring up is just the X factor here for Detroit. If they really want to win a Super Bowl, I think it's defensively is the X factor. I mean, Carlton Davis had some good moments last night. He made a couple tackles that I thought was very good tackles. You don't really see a lot of cornerbacks trying to make tackles. He did last night, but he had 3 flags. I believe Terry Arnold had 3 flags as well. They got to play a little bit more discipline. There could have been another flag on DK Metcalf on I believe it was a play in the end zone where clearly it was a flag. It probably should have been on the 1 yard line. I mean, and some of these flags led to scores. Geno Smith still had 400 yards in this game. We cannot forget that. So their defense is the X factor here. We do know that they have Aiden Hutchinson. He's going to be able to wreck the game at the line of scrimmage, but you can't, that's only but so much. The Seahawks was able to run the ball on the defensive line. Kenneth Walker went off in the third quarter. And they had some flags in the secondary. Their defense is critical to where this team wants to go.
I think, one thing that remedies a bad defense is having an extraordinary run game, right? And I think the Lions' ability to stay on the field as long as they want, just by their run game alone, can deter how poorly their defense can play in terms of discipline, in terms of making marquee plays. And even though Hutchinson makes a lot of big plays, like you said, their secondary is prone to making some big penalties and big mistakes, which could hinder them a little bit. But when you got Montgomery, when you got Gibbs, and you're able to run the ball so well, time of possession is going to be on your side, which allows your team to kind of dictate how the game will go, especially when other teams are trying to rush down the field. They may be prone to mistakes, right? Which allows the secondary to not be as glaring as a.
But the teams are going to pass because the Lions' run defense prior to this game was solid. I mean, Kyron Williams, he did have a decent game, but it wasn't like their game plan because they knew the run defense was solid. So prior to this game, they were solid. It just, KW3 is KW3. He went off. He had a good game. But the secondary is the main issue for me long term. And I think teams are going to know that. They're going to pass the ball. And can the Lions be disciplined enough to not give up some big plays down the field?
And one key point on that too, they were missing their starting safety, Brian Branch, yesterday, who I think is one of the best players on their team. That guy's a dog. I think they'll need to get him back. Hopefully he gets healthy soon. Big fan of his.
Please like and subscribe for all the up-to-date content. You've been slinging shows left and right, slinging content left and right. Please don't miss anything. If you do, like, subscribe, leave a comment, leave a question, something you may want to answer, something you may have. All ideas are great ideas. Nothing's a dumb question.